sum it all up, the whole show is mostly a smear campaign to frame Rusty for murder against Carolyn Palamas, the woman in which is cheating on his wife with. A case brought forward by Nico, De LaGuardia, and Tommy Malta, but despite the show having some good moments, it is never as intense as, for instance, Blackbird, a show that looks like this. Of course, it is not as intense there all the time either during the episodes, but when it first gets tenser, it beats the tense moments of this show. Show opens pretty tense in the first 3 episodes, and you are just blown away by the acting from Jake Gyllenhaal, how he acts as his man trying to keep it together, but at the same time he keeps losing it, and he tries to hold his life and family together as best possibly can in extraordinary circumstances. That act from him feels very real, the desperation feels very real, but that's also too much of a slowdown during the next few episodes. Especially the sad story of Barbara and the bartender Clifton adds nothing to the show, other than perhaps Barbara's own way of getting back and taking revenge for her husband's head. Thinking if he did it, it's alright if I do it too. Of course, she only kissed him, but the same thing applies. And she goes into therapy with the wife of the guy, Raymond Horgan, who is suddenly appointed to defend Rusty. Those moments are not that entertaining. The show, however, gets better towards the end, again from episode 6, 7, and onwards to the finale that delivers the verdict. With heated arguments between Maya and Rusty, then also between him and Raymond, where the latter suddenly gets a heart attack. In the 7th, you get a major cliffhanger when the fire poker is found supposed to be the murder weapon, and he also finds some documents with interesting information which apparently seems planted in the mouse's house, leading us on to a random twist, thinking the final episode in number 8 just had a verdict where Rusty was not guilty. Neither the son of the mother, Tommy Malta, or anybody else. But the real truth is a twist so random that nobody could predict it, but it just does not feel realistic in my eyes. Maybe the daughter Jaden could be capable of such an act as a crime of passion, not like she was living in a dream. Maybe, but that she would realistically be able to pull that off. But in a real scenario, I'm not so sure. Then, of course, she held it covered good and nobody expected it. Nevertheless, I feel such a gruesome act done as a teenager. I don't think it at least would be realistic that she killed her in that particular way. Anyways, there are also some problems with the way the story is told, where yes, of course I do understand that you need flashbacks when you need to tell a story of a dead person, but it is much of the same scenes and the flashes often comes at a time where there's not anything new to tell. Much like in the Terminalist, where it also here, just like that, you see some filler content. Not to say that the Norwegian actor Renate Reinsberg acts well, I just feel that you could rather do a whole episode on her story rather than just jumping back and forth all the time when the characters are thinking to create this rather messy storylines. Another issue in this one, which is not necessarily a biggie, but we need to address the issue of the inclusion characters here. While Ruth Negga does pretty well as the black woman together with Rusty, I do feel a lot of this with the black judge and everything. Maya, for example, is just done to create diversity in the show. Not that any of them act too bad, but I would just give a short insight on that. But I just feel this is something that a lot of shows do these days. Another thing I will comment on that I do feel hinders the show from reaching its full potential comes down to the main character and how the story gets worse when other elements are more in focus. This side story with the bartender, like I said, is less interesting. The therapy that Barbara goes to, it is less interesting, and the conversations around the dinner table are less interesting in a way, perhaps, that could be defended, because they try to show how such a murder trial might affect your daily life. But that does not change the fact that it is less entertaining. At times, I also feel for outsiders that do not know too much about the legal system in the US, is a bit left out in the dark, because it is at times a bit too heavy on the legal stuff, and while basic stuff as reasonable doubt and something like that could be explained, it is not properly explained how a man like Rusty in this case, for instance, can be convicted without hard evidence. But I guess you see smear campaigns in the real world against top-level people as well. If we again now talk about the tension, where we have touched a little bit on that before, but not really between the characters. There's some rift between Savage and Barbara, but it could have been tenser. Actually, it is more tense between Rusty and Malta, but also Rusty and his other legal team, as well as between Nico and Malta. If we isolate the show itself in a total score, Like so many shows these days, I judge some episodes, others not so much, as well as I do feel the sad story, the unrealistic twist, the flashbacks at strange times during the show are all elements which stops me from giving this more than a 6 out of 10. Sure, it gets heated in court between Savage, Molter, and Raymond, but it is not enough at a base level for me to really give a heads up to the show after this first season where I feel it did too much of a slowdown from the first 3 episodes.